Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch 2020, our new show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Damon Hatfield, and I am joined, as usual, by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Howdy, Damon.
And Jonathan Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Hey there.
Lots to get through today. Xbox just gave us a first look at third-party games on Xbox Series X. Ryan, was this a successful show? Do the games we saw today get people excited about Xbox Series X?
Yes and no. There were a lot of really cool new games. I think 13 of them, if I have the count correctly. I think the general community-wide disappointment, which I think is fair, is I think this was sort of mislabeled. It was hyped up as Xbox Series X gameplay reveals, and it really wasn't that. There was some in-engine stuff, but we saw very little gameplay highlighted, or I should say really low-lighted, unfortunately, by the star of this thing was supposed to be Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which again had been hyped up like, hey, the cool CG trailer we talked about on last week's show, we got that last week, and then it was stay tuned this week for the gameplay reveal. There was no gameplay. There was, again, in-engine, what certainly looked like cutscenes, but no actual gameplay. So that's, I think, where a lot of the disappointment stems from. I did like a lot of the games, but there was nothing that really said, whoa, look at these, we have to go get an Xbox Series X now.
And then Jonathan, sort of representing Sony fans, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, a lot of the sentiment I think that Ryan had, I think this was not the best choice as the first opening salvo for next-gen game reveals, partially because of the sort of mislabeling and misunderstanding of what we sort of expect from gameplay reveals, but also because I just think there was a lack of heavy hitters. Like the biggest game was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which we knew was going to be here, and then wasn't quite what we were expecting or being promised. And then, of course, there's a big game. Madden is one of the biggest selling games every year, but Madden is sort of an expected game that is probably going to be on next-gen consoles. There were so many other potentials for really big, recognizable franchises or developers, and they just weren't represented here on a third-party aspect. And I think this showcase in particular could have used one or two more of those to help sort of ease the hurt that I think some fans are feeling by what we were promised.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was definitely the biggest game of the show today. Everyone was really excited about it after the reveal trailer last week, and they were expecting to see this gameplay. I don't really know what happened today because we're not too far off from the time of the year when they would usually have the reveal trailer, and then at a Microsoft press conference, they'd show the big gameplay reveal where they'd walk us through a full mission, show us all the new gameplay features they're working on. What do you think happened here in this case?
I mean, it's tough to know for sure. The game could be really early. I've been around. I've been covering games for a while now. I've been very fortunate. This is my third Xbox console launch that I'm in the media for, and the new consoles are always, the hardware is always such a moving target. The hardware is being iterated and finalized as the games are being finalized as well. So it's tricky for developers in that sense. You get the added curveball of the pandemic, everybody working from home. But it could also be as simple as politics on this one, where Ubisoft decided, well, yeah, we'll give this first gameplay to Microsoft, but then, well, we got to save something big for our own press conference, which Ubisoft had said that they would still be doing an E3 press conference when there was still going to be an E3. Now I have to presume that Ubisoft will probably still have their own stream, their own broadcast of some kind, and we're going to see the actual real gameplay there. So I hope it wasn't political. I hope it was more just technical, but still disappointing either way.
Yeah, Aaron Greenberg, I believe, tweeted yesterday or earlier this morning before the show, essentially sort of trying to set expectations a little bit on that, and noted that, hey, a lot of our partners were working on the traditional June reveal for a lot of these things. And so it may likely just come down to they weren't ready a month early to have a big, fully featured gameplay reveal. That said, I think they could have done a better job messaging what we were going to get.
So we saw a lot of new games today, a lot that looked cool or interesting, but I'm not sure I saw anything that made me go, wow, that's amazing. That's next gen. That looks so much better than Red Dead Redemption 2. Ryan, do you agree with that sentiment? And were there any games today that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but again, it's not to say that any of those won't have that effect on you ultimately, but we saw in-engine stuff at best. We didn't actually see real gameplay. I've got a little cheat sheet here. There were a couple of games that I thought were particularly impressive. I actually really loved the first game that they showed, which was Bright Memory Infinite, which was a part first-person shooter, part first-person driving game, part first-person melee combat. It kind of had a lot of interesting ingredients going on for it, to say nothing of the fact that apparently they said it's developed by one person, which is insane, which is just crazy but for any video game these days, let alone one that looks like that and appears to be aiming for a very AAA kind of level. But that really caught my attention. And I will say Call of the Sea is very much a Ryan McCaffrey kind of game. First person puzzle solving on like a adventure on a quiet, like beautiful island. That looked really good. Like gameplay wise, I will agree. Like technically, it certainly looks like it could easily show that way on an Xbox One. The two other quick ones. The Ascent. I'm a big Diablo fan. The game looked like Judge Dredd had a baby with Diablo. And then a game, one of the few games that we already knew about heading into this, or had already been announced, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was a game I actually personally hadn't really been keeping a super close eye on. Like I was like, okay, we'll see how this is. But that trailer they showed really won me over. It was had a very distinct sort of tone and flair to it, and almost kind of gave me like a We Happy Few kind of vibe, but with vampires. So yeah, I thought those were the standouts for me.
Jonathan, how about you? Anything stick out?
Yeah, definitely Call of the Sea was a sort of like BioShock meets The Witness and looked like an unreleased Campo Santo game. So I'm all for that. I was most anticipating going in and seeing more of Valhalla as a huge Assassin's Creed fan. And while the sort of in-engine nods to what the gameplay will probably look like seemed cool, it just wasn't enough to really get me more anticipated than I already was. I enjoyed Scarlet Nexus a bit, the Bandai Namco game, and I personally am really excited for Yakuza Like a Dragon to be coming to the West. That one changes the combat of the system, or of the franchise, to be more turn-based, a little akin to Persona, and I think that was really important seeing that there, because Yakuza has been such a PlayStation-minded franchise, but we've seen it pop up more and more over the last year at Xbox events with the remastered collection coming and games on Game Pass. I think that being there showed a pretty key bet by Microsoft and by Xbox to try to get an audience that maybe doesn't always come to Xbox.
Sure. Yakuza, we also found out, is a launch title, and it will be taking advantage of the smart delivery feature, which means you can buy a game once on either platform, Xbox One or Xbox Series X, and it will work on the other one. But Ryan, I think we're also learning that that offer is a limited time offer. Is that correct?
Just for Madden. That was sort of the weird. Yeah, most of these were tagged smart delivery, which means whenever you buy them, you buy them once on whatever Xbox platform, and it'll work on any Xbox platform. But yeah, the interesting bit about Madden was that I thought, I'd have to go back and watch it. We're recording this like right after the stream. That I thought they said smart delivery, but it was clarified later that it's a limited time offer. Players must purchase Madden NFL 21 on Xbox One by December 31st of this year and get your upgrade to the Series X version by March 31st of 2021. So it's not smart delivery per se, but nevertheless, if you can own your first, unofficially speaking, you can own your first Series X game this July when Madden ships. So I think that's great though. I mean, Madden's one of those games where there's a lot of more casual gamers who buy 1, 2, 3 games a year. Madden is often on that short list for people. So that's a really good incentive for players to stick with Microsoft, or maybe even go with Microsoft. The fact that they can get the next gen version for free.
Jonathan, how significant is this smart delivery feature, and do you think Sony has to have an answer for that?
I think it is a great feature and a really consumer-focused and consumer-facing feature that is really important and tells the buyer, hey, we are considering you. Obviously games are here to make money, but hey, we also want to keep you in mind and want to keep you loyal to this. I would love if Sony adopted this. I don't think Sony is going to adopt this until they are forced to. In the same way that I think Game Pass is, hands down, we talk about it all the time on many of our shows, arguably probably the best thing Microsoft has introduced to the entire industry this generation. Most important. Some people can, debate whether or not that making all these games available at once for a monthly fee is good or bad for development, but that is a great feature that Sony still really hasn't adopted. They do have PlayStation Now, but it is a much smaller push for them. It is not something they care about pushing to the consumers quite as much as Game Pass. So I don't think we're going to see Sony adopt this until they have to, until they feel like they are at a huge market loss. If they notice reception to the PS5 at first is bad, I have a feeling they'll say, hey, we want you to come to PS5 to play PS5 games. That is why you should buy a PS5.
That's interesting. All right, so we've talked a lot about how Xbox has sort of been dominating the next-gen conversation so far, seemingly saying all the right things, really making Xbox Series X look appealing. Maybe today it was a little bit less exciting than people were hoping, but Brian, what does it look like going forward? We know in July they're going to have their first-party game studios showcase. Do you think that'll be the next big beat from Xbox?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the what could happen between now and then, or just as easily after the first party game showcase. I'm trying to think of what the plan's going to look like. So we got the console and the name, the look of the box and the name at the Game Awards in December. Then we got the tech specs and some cool tech demos of things like the quick resume feature for multiple games, things like that, the loading time demo that they've shown, and now here third party games. Obviously, they're building towards the first party games, which is always, that is the just elephant in the room with Microsoft, is where are the exclusive games? So a lot of pressure on them for that July event, but there's still one other big piece of the puzzle, and that's the so-called Series S, or the Lockhart, the less powerful, more entry-level priced next generation console that presumably won't be as powerful, but it'll still have kind of the core next gen features, like presumably the fast loading, the quick hard drive. So there's that. So that's like, where does that fit in? And then of course the price and release date. So does that happen after the first party showcase in July? Does it happen before? I mean, you could probably make the case either way. I think they probably, my hunch is that stuff will happen after. I think they're going to want to use the first party showcase in July to really get people hyped. I think today probably didn't go like Microsoft hoped it would go over with the gaming public, but that July event, that is their chance for them to finally show off a great potential first party lineup, and then you get everybody excited there. Then you can say, okay, and by the way, here's our price for Series X. Here's the lower entry, the lower cost version, if that's a better solution for you, and it'll be out on this date. Go pre-order it. So we'll see what happens.
All right, well, dear viewers, we want to know which game that was shown off today is most exciting to you. Was it Dirt 5? Was it Scorn? Was it The Ascent? Make sure to vote at IGN.com, and we'll share the results with you next week. We have the results of last week's poll when we asked you which Assassin's Creed is the best in the series, and the winner was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, beating out more recent entries like Odyssey and Origins. So looks like there's still a lot of love for the more classic Assassin's Creeds out there. Well, this Inside Xbox was just the start of a whole bunch of gaming reveals coming this summer, including more from Xbox 2020. Look for IGN's Summer of Gaming live events with 2K, Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, Amazon, Google Stadia, Twitter, Devolver Digital, THQ Nordic, and more as part of the showcase. We'll have tons of exclusive reveals, gameplay, and so much more. Stay tuned for more details here on Next Gen Console Watch. And that will about do it for this episode. Thank you to Jonathan and Ryan. Make sure to tune in at the same time next Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern for more Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 news. We'll see you then. Beginning in June, watch IGN's exclusive Summer of Gaming content for the latest and greatest in game reveals, news, trailers, next-gen coverage, and more. Tune in wherever you like to watch IGN or on IGN One on your Samsung TVs.